Well, I think your analysis was very straight line. History doesn't run in a straight line.
Kid, you cannot tell your neighbor he is stealing ducks when you are stealing funds.
As High Commissioner, I was wrong. As Charandas Prasad, I reacted naturally how any person would have.
I did not come here for that kind of abuse. I did not come here for that kind of abuse. If you're going to go down that road, I'll walk off.
But it's all okay once they're talking. If they were talking, I could not have been here today.
You got ADHD.
I ain't got nothing.
Calm down.
I think I've done enough in terms of taking our team out of trouble from losing.
Come on, Lou Taylor. That's good. I'm reading the script now, and the first person that comes to my mind to play a detective,
Yes,
but
okay,
an
he's good too.
erratic
Mikhail
detective,
Rodriguez.
is Mikhail Rodriguez.
Why an African slap an Indian? Why a man and slap a woman? Look, girl, how you deal with that? You deal with that.
We must encourage platforms like this because it brings together different people and allows for discussions to take place in our country on a multiplicity of fundamental issues.
Kingdom, you apologizing for something you think I did is wrong. I don't want you to do that, and you should not have done that. Good evening. Good evening from Guyana, Georgetown. In fact, to be specific, Queenstown and Georgetown in the Loonie. This is the Freddie Kissoon Show. We're coming to you live Wednesday, the last Wednesday in January. Can't believe January is finished. We don't have a guest, or we don't have guests, because Leonard, Craig, and I decided a month ago that there are things to be said from us. We, like our guests, have adumbrations, theses, we have viewpoints that we would like to put forward to the society. We would like to analyze occurrences in Guyana, so we think we could impart knowledge to people. When we have a guest, we can't analyze what Nigel Hughes is doing. The guest does that. We can't talk about the crazy things about some straw poll that a guy did named Bisram and a man named Azaruddin is in front of the president. When we interview guests, we can't talk about those things, and we have our analysis to make. So we continue with the format this evening in which Leonard and I will analyze things, evaluate things, give our analytical perspectives on the contents of the social landscape of Guyana. So that is what we will do this evening. We will have our calling on Friday, and we continue on Monday. So I'll hand over to Mr. Analysis, Leonard Craig, Guyana Chronicle columnist.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Freddie. Thank you, viewers, for joining us. Please continue to join us. Please continue to share our program on this platform. Now, this evening, we have a number of things to discuss. We will start firstly with the budget, because that is current and that is what's happening now. Freddie, did you pay attention to the debates, the various speakers?
No. Some of it. I don't know if what happens here happens in the rest of the world, but I could hardly sit down and listen to the first budget presentation of 5 hours, and then there is the debate for, I don't know, 1 week is finished. Is it going on to the next week? I don't know with other countries, but for me, I think that's too long. I think the first budget presentation where the finance minister speak, 5 hours or too long. And then I believe you should have a representative sample from the ruling party and the opposition party to represent their views. If you want to have a wider, then you should have maybe 15 people from the opposition, but they only allow 5 minutes. But to have so many speakers,
For 30 minutes plus.
No. I got what was inside the budget. I know what's inside of it, and for me, generally, I'm supportive of it. Of course, I can't support everything that is in it. There are things that you wish, were better. But generally, I support the budget. But to answer your question, no.
All right. So there's one observation that I made. I didn't watch every speaker, but I watched some of them partly. Sometimes I look and then I would fast forward and just take a sample throughout. So I heard most of the speakers. And one speaker on the opposition side struck me, and that is MP Geeta Chandan.
Yeah.
She spoke not in favor fully and not against fully of the budget. She walked the middle line, and then certain things she found favorable, and she mentioned those things and so on. And I see, at least on social media, some tension among opposition supporters, and even some activists are commenting negatively on her presentation. What do you think of those kinds of presentation where people from the opposition is being on issues they believe to be good in the budget are complementary of the government? What views you hold on that?
Well, I think you have to contextualize it. There are some responses to Nigel Hughes in the papers by one guy called Nikhil Sankar. I know him. He is a medical student, and others, in which, based on their response to Nigel Hughes, they got cussing down. And both of them said, look, and you would understand that because you wrote in the Chronicle about it, when people say something good about the government, or it helps you as an opposition party when you show some appreciation. People don't see you as narrow-minded, and you win. You tend to win rather than lose when one of your own members say, well, I think that minister meant well, and I appreciate the presentation he made about ABCD. If you just bang away and call people, soup drinker, call people house slaves, as you rightfully said in the Chronicle, you lose support because you present yourself in a certain...
As a one-way street, yeah.
And I think what she did is, in fact, helpful to her party than those who just banging away. Because when you look at her, you have some appreciation for the character of the person, and that person represents the opposition. So it transfers. And I don't know if the opposition, the private media, and those civil society people who support the opposition understand that. Leonard, I'm saying this and then I'm going to hand over to you. I think the relentless critiques by the private newspaper, but particularly Starbuck News, because I think people find Kaicho News a bit comical, and therefore the message wouldn't resonate as when it's Starbuck News.
Yeah, Starbuck.
I have said it in so many of my columns. They do a disservice to the people who want to see, who don't like the government or who want to see changes, because they bang away so illogically at everything that they make people so fed up, and people judge them as against the government. I mean, if you look at anything, and everything you criticize the government for. You can't win. You know, people can just see you as part of the lunatic fringe.
Yeah, I can't disagree with you because, and that is what I'm saying, and I wrote in my column several times, that the opposition needs to be a little more sensible in their opposing, in that, for example, if there's a good measure, right? Let's take something, let me just pull something out the air, the gas to energy project, right? The opposition is saying that the more suitable site is on the East Coast. I think around Hope on the East Coast area there. And they're saying it's costing more to go to Wales. But in their comment, they needed to explain to people that, yeah, we support this gas to energy project. We want to see it. We think the numbers are right. Or we believe that these numbers are right and these are not right, and reason with the population and show them why your position in opposition to the government's position, why it makes sense. But then when you come to speak and you want to rubbish the whole project just because you're in the opposition, I find I personally don't like that approach. And as you said, it can lose your support base. People then get fed up, your one-track mind. For example, when you witness Rickford Burke, for example, the way he writes, you notice Rickford Burke sees race in everything, no matter what. President Modi came to Guyana, went back home, and he said, I believe Modi may have seen it in some document sometime that, Indians came to Guyana. But when he came on the ground and actually saw East Indians assimilate into the society and all of that, he went back home and he commented there's a country in South America where, they are Indians and they're trying to preserve the way of life, of the motherland, whatever. And I'm heartened by that. And even something as simple as that, and everything else, a commentary on any black person who support the PPP, and things like that. And that there it resonates with some people, but it doesn't go deeply into the support base, and especially if you expect crossover support or crossover votes, you're turning people off. And I think the opposition needs to be a little more thoughtful, a little more sensible, a little more analytic. Look at something, agree with what is agreeable, and so on. It is not possible because a lot of the measures in the budget, a lot of it, yes, it's oriented by a government and by the minister in charge or what have you. But a lot of it comes from technocratic people. And which are the same people that assisted in crafting the budget when the coalition was in power. And to say that the budget has nothing good and, that kind of thing is not sensible. But having said that, I would like us to discuss some of the measures that we would have liked to see more in the budget. Well, for me, let me say straight up that I do not find this budget unacceptable. I find the budget targeted to the policies that the government has promised in the manifesto. I would not sit here and say the budget is perfect. And I'd be surprised if anybody would say the budget is perfect. But the budget is good, targeted, and very, some people will even say transformative, right? When these projects come into view, it will lighten up a lot of our thing. But one thing I'd like to plug about the budget, for me, I would have liked to see more direct, knowing that this is an election year. Probably you could give the government a pass on that, because which is a problem I had when APNU AFC government was in power, and I was supporting that. I was a wholehearted supporter of that government. But I don't think they understood the connection between budget and winning an election. I don't think they understood the connection between budget and reaching out to people. I don't think they understood that. They saw budget probably as purely an administrative tool. And if in 2025, you don't understand, you're in government, and if, as in 2020, if in 2020, you don't understand that there is a direct connection between budget and winning an election, you probably didn't deserve to be in power. And so if people say this is an election year budget, as a person involved in politics, it has to be. It can't be any other way. And so...
Well, why would a ruling party be stingy in the budget and there's an election 6 months away?
Exactly. It just doesn't make sense. And I think APNU AFC did not understand that in 2020, that there's a direct connection between winning an election and the budget you put out in that year, or probably even the year before leading into an election or an electoral cycle.
I am going to come to the budget, but you just raised something that I think is going to take the rest of this program if we get into it. I don't think the APNU AFC had an assembly of people who knew anything about politics. It is so tragic that they are saying that they didn't lose the elections, when any mindset like them in any other country would have lost the election, because they just didn't understand politics. If you take Harmon, the president, and a few others of them, and you go across to WPA, Rupert Trupnowa and Clive Thomas, those people, AFC, those people never had the background in politics like the PPP leaders who come from the village and they were 14. So I think you have to have an understanding of politics and all these dimensions if you're going to succeed. And I don't think they did. I mean, with all the writings of Rupert Trupnowa and Clive Thomas, they were just mediocre. In
the practice of politics.
They were just
right.
But let's talk about, you asked me with the budget. I think I want to go back to what, as an academic now, let me put on my academic hat. Let me put on the hat of someone who's been trained academically at 3 universities. Leonard, Craig, you can't believe how asinine and how thoughtless and how macabre I find the relentless critique of people who don't like the government, that we must go to the renegotiating table. But a contract could be renegotiated without any consideration of the international context of who Exxon is and the international disadvantage of countries like Guyana, Jamaica, small developing countries. But what I find surprising, and this is where the dishonesty come in. This country had a long-standing economist who worked at CARICOM as an advisor to the Secretary General, advisor to CARICOM, advisor to the UN, involved in all kinds of international trade transactions. And the man wrote his autobiography, Morris Odell. And the man talked about how this international capital is like a monster ready to devour the third world. You gotta be careful, and he lay out all the things they do to stifle you. And somebody like Christopher Ram chaired the meeting, chaired the event when the book was launched, did a review of the man's book. Now, when you read the man's book, you know you can't force eggs onto the table, because the book is so rich in what the West does. So he has a chapter called The New Imperialism, in which he said these people, old style colonialism gone. And yet the Starbuck News a couple days ago saying, bring them to the table, we negotiate, as if Mr. Trump, as if the West, as if international capital will say, man, that's okay. You know what is going to happen to Guyana? And that for me is one of the lowest point in the opposition and the private media and civil society's contribution to Guyana. It's so vulgar.
Freddie, I'm going to tell you something that I discussed with more than one AFC leaders at the time when that oil contract was being negotiated. And I called those leaders. At the time, I obviously it wasn't all around the place, but being close to the government, you get to hear certain things. And I called a few of my leaders, at least 3 of them. And I said, the contract with the oil company, why not have a group of people who, you don't have to be an expert in oil, you just have to have a general understanding of life, what Guyanese need, what you will need out of your oil base. Even if you don't want these people to take information out, you tell people, look, leave your cell phones, leave your thing, nothing to copy, nothing must leave the room. Come and sit down and read this thing and give us your honest impression. And I was trying to persuade them to do that. And I believe had they done that, they would have gotten honest impression from people who read the document. I tried to persuade them again when they were going on those court cases. And for me, some of the things that they were going to argue, I don't know too much of law. I'm not trained in law or anything. But as a lay person on the road listening to some arguments, they did not appear to be sound. And I call a couple of leaders again and I say, here now, your presentation you're going to put in court is public document. There's nothing to hide anyway. Why not sit in a room with a couple of people who got a good understanding of politics and life in Guyana and a good grasp of, political relations and so on. Sit down in a room, present your case to them and let them grill you and let them ask you some questions. Why is this so and why is that so? And you will get ideas to refine what you're doing. And these guys just believed that they knew it all, bluntly refused, and they went, and every time they don't do that, they make rookie mistakes. And now rookie mistakes were made with the oil contract. And the same people who signed the contract, the same people who supervise the putting together of these things are now coming to pressure the current government to renegotiate the contract. It just doesn't make sense. You if the contract is now there, We have the contract. We are working with what it is. And the sensible thing to do, we have a number of oil well that were discovered that has to come on stream. We have a number of oil blocks that has to come on stream. We have probably have a number of oil fields that are also not yet explored and discovered. So we still have a lot of oil that is not yet found. In every future agreement, you adjust the
PSA,
ratios, you adjust the PSA, you adjust whatever are the ratios inside of the agreement or whatever it is, you adjust it for the future. I would have liked to see, though, I'm not sure if the government has concluded the future agreement, the model, right? What the coalition used, it was a model that was developed since 1999. And for me, common sense tells you that if this thing was developed in 1999, I think it was 99? I think that's the year, under Janet Jagan's presidency. And you are negotiating this thing in 2015, which is what? 16 years later? Or 26 years later? 26 years later. You are negotiating this thing and you're using the same model agreement from 1999. Something should have told you that information and conditions must have progressed. And even if you don't know what it is, something got to be grainy in your head to say, here, look, this thing is settling with me. Let me go and do some more research. It is the same agreement from 99, from Janet Jagan, they brought into 2015 and just tweak 1% royalty to 2%. And one or two other things that didn't fundamentally change the agreement. And something should have told you that, look, too many years have passed for this thing to, even if you didn't know, something should have told you that. And then having gotten that feeling, then you go into some deeper questions. And then, that is done. But I support the trajectory that, here, look, work with the agreement that we have. We acknowledge it's not a good agreement, but every other future agreement, whether it's with Exxon itself or with any other explorer or producer, you have a different agreement that is have better terms in it. And I think that is sensible, and to incorporate what you said just now, we have to take those factors into consideration.
I cannot believe the asininity of these people. These people know who Guyana is.
Mm.
Before the whole thing, the whole world didn't know about Guyana. They knew with Jonestown and they forgot.
Mm.
You know what Exxon is?
Yeah.
You know what Exxon, you know how in the capitals of international finance, what they're going to say when they see these people are going to take umbrage of a country named Guyana, forcing Exxon. You know what they're going to say in that boardroom? Where is Guyana? Where the hell is it?
Mm. But beyond that, Guyana is what you call a frontier oil country, which meaning that oil is a new thing for us. And it is the experience across the world. When you are a frontier country, you don't carry as hard a bargain as you would when you become a seasoned oil producer. And I think the future, the adjusted PSA, right, or the new PSA model that is being worked out right now and that's being adopted so far, acknowledges that look, we made a frontier mistake, but by the time we are ready to kick in with another agreement, you can't tell us we're frontier anymore, because look, we have found over 11 wells so far, and we have proven oil reserves and you know, and all of that. So you have a bigger leverage to work with. And so for me, that would be my view on the oil thing. But let's we digress. Let's go back to the budget and some of the measures that you would have liked to see personally.
Holistically, I support the budget. I can't bring myself to look at that budget and say, man, what's happening here? This one of the fictions of a budget by those who are honestly working class or honestly dispossessed is they like to see more money coming to them directly. That is acceptable, but it's not theoretically possible, simply because a budget is a holistic distribution of resources, not in money form only. Now, when you look at the budget and you look at the allocation for education, for health, that's a direct transfer of wealth to people. I mean, if you're going to build 12 more hospitals, you're going to build hospital in a place where people have never seen a hospital. If you go to expand, I can tell you this, Leonard Craig, my wife and I have benefited from the Georgetown Hospital. And if I did, for example, I had to get a shot in my knee. The drug was $32,000. I paid nothing. That was what the hospital... I am telling viewers now, I had to get an injection into my knee, okay, that I normally got at a reduced price from Dr. Benjamin Singh, and then he died. And that drug cost $32,000. We had a program in which cancer specialists from the Georgetown Hospital were a guest. And one of the doctors was telling us the cost of one of those treatment or one of those drugs. And you get it free in the hospital. Now, the poor folks may have a problem understanding how that is transfer of wealth. That is how you plan a budget. You don't plan a budget and give Mary, John, Sunil money, endless money. Having said that, when I look at the budget, I find there are things that I would like to see improve for next year. No question in my mind is social assistance. I said it when Gildavi was the co-host, and I will continue to say it. It is a bit, I want to use the right word, it is a bit unnerving to have in a budget the increase of public assistance by $3,000. No. I support the budget, and I'm telling the budget drafters, I think that was a mistake. I think that definitely was a mistake. If the idea of public assistance is people who can't afford it look into their country, remember it's the country's money, it's not the government's money. They look into their country to help them. And these are people who saying openly, I need help. And I don't see how you could have drafted a budget and give them $3,000 more. I found that surprising, and our last program with our guest, I said I think that's a mystery. The other thing that I would like to see done is 78,000 senior citizens, and I think we worked it out how much this is $5,000, and I think Kian Jibur worked it out with his calculator. That came up to 380 million. I think the country could afford for the 2025 budget a larger sum for senior citizens as I think you and I were chatting in the studio. When you look at the kind of concessions that translate into resources that business get, and
let me go there quickly. I think I mentioned it in some other program that this is my personal view.
You don't agree with.
I'm not speaking
you
for
don't agree
anybody
with universal
else.
cash grant. I
do not agree. I'm not a fan of universal cash transfers.
It can't work.
I am not a fan.
It has class disadvantages.
Yes, and there's enough universal transfers, but that is not direct. Like you mentioned, the hospital, any Guyanese can go and get any surgery that is available in any hospital. That's universal. That's good. But when it comes to direct cash transfers, I think the people who need it the most, absolutely the most, should get it. For example, there is something circulating in the news and in the social media about a rich businessman who got tax incentives and tax relief and what's the word they use? Not rebate. It's like when you owe and it is cancelled. There's a term for that. And I am not agreeing with anybody who did the exposure, but the exposure is already made and we know of it.
So it's a fact there on the table.
Right. So we can comment on it. I'm not attacking the businessman or anybody, but I'm saying the business class got so many avenues for benefiting from the treasury, and sometimes millions of dollars. Some of them
you mean get hundreds of millions.
Exactly. Hundreds and tens of millions. Some business people are getting huge tracts of lands at concessionary prices, and all of that as well transfer to people who have. And now you have and they continually get, sometimes these people apply for duty-free concession because they're bringing in some machine to do something, this, that, and all of that. And all of that, every time they get a duty-free concession, it's a wealth transfer. And so it therefore means then that these people cannot then line up in the same line with the poor man living in a shack in which neighborhood?
Every school child in Guyana isn't getting a cash grant.
Yeah, even if you go.
But do you know if you could afford, if you could afford to send your children to Maize and School in the Nation, and a child going to Charlestown Primary, that child in Charlestown Primary need it more than a child who's going to
Yeah. And so for me, personally, not a fan. I understand that Guyana, I understand that Guyana needs the universal cash transfer now. But after this year, there shouldn't be an excuse for universal cash transfer. It should be conditional. We need it now because we don't have all the systems in place. And I understand that it will be confusing to try because, for example, a case in point, the president was saying, hey, every household will get. And then when you sit down and you think the way how Guyana is structured, you're going to have plenty problems in determining what's a household. Then you say, okay, everybody above 18. Understood that we don't have these systems in place.
Should stop. Yeah, a single mother with two kids can't get the same amount of money as somebody in
right. So I think it should be conditional. A place to look for conditional cash transfer is Germany. As rich as Germany is, they have continuous conditional cash transfer. You could approach the state look into your, and when you approach the state, you got to be willing for the state to look into your life. They look into your life and see what's happening, what you've earned, what's going on, and they look at your education and everything. And they will assist you if you need a job.
Let me cut you. A child at Marion Academy or at School of the Nation needs that money as much as a child in Charlestown Primary School?
It depends on who the child is. That is why the analysis will have to be done at the personal level. You know, there are conditions. You meet these conditions, you get the cash transfer.
'Cause if all those children could go, if you could afford to send your child to school of the nation, rather Johnson Primary, they would have been in school of the nation.
Right. Well, some people make a conscious choice to use the public school system, even if they could afford to go to.
Do you think so? You got any research for that?
I think some people do.
But I spoke about two things in the budget that I would like to see was better. The third one, I'm a bit nonplussed. I think this one has me in a mood to ask why the abolition of toll for the new highway, for the new bridge. I think that I want to believe that was a mistake. For the government part, they would probably say, no, it wasn't a mistake. But when, I'm no economist, but when I look at it from a class perspective, I am no economist, but I think I could play a role in government with the emphasis on how you elevate disadvantaged classes. I think I'm educated enough to implement class politics or class economics. How is that abolition of toll, how is that a benefit to disadvantaged classes?
It certainly isn't direct. There is a little benefit, and let me just explain quickly. Not that I totally disagree with your point, and I'll tell you what I disagree with, what you just said, and what I agree with. The benefits, one of the benefits are no, not the minibus. You get over much faster. You save some time. You know, you poor person, you get to spend more time with your family, whatever, because you get there faster. And you don't have to wait in this long line to cross the Demerara Harbor Bridge. You leave work at 4:30, and you're home till 7 o'clock in the night. So those are intangible benefits. And if you get drilled down to it, you can convert it into opportunity cost and dollars. So move past that. So there are lots of intangible benefits that we can go through them one after. And I figure you were talking about direct financial benefits. I don't particularly see direct financial benefits for ordinary traveling people, and here's why. I think those who are presenting the budget may have a different view and may have a different explanation, but here is mine. The minibuses used to pay, I think, $200 to cross the bridge, and now they no longer pay. If you divide a $200 trip across the bridge by the passengers in, it might turn out to be 5-10 cents per passenger. And it therefore makes no sense to then reduce the fare. So making the bridge toll-free doesn't reduce the fare. And I'm talking for the poorest of people who takes a minibus. I'm not talking for those who drive over with a car. We could talk about that later, but I'm just looking at the poorest of poor, right? So they cross the bridge at no reduced cost to themselves. It's the same 100 or 120 you're going to pay to go over that you're paying to go Parfait or wherever people live. Or Perica, same, I think it's 500, right? It wouldn't change for the poorer class. So if we look at it in that way, I would have probably, if I was sitting in one of the budget planning meeting or a political strategy meeting, I would have said, look, to have a trade-off where the lowest for people with the lowest level of affordability to get some relief, I would have said, look, $200 to cross the bridge is not a lot of money for the people who are driving their cars. And then you do a balancing thing. You actually then take that money and probably even reduce whatever taxes are applied to plying a minibus, whether it's the license and revenue, you reduce the license and revenue cost to $1 or $100, fund it directly from the bridge. And it's easy to target. You are targeting, you got too many minibus to target. There aren't too many minibuses with Route 31 and Route 40, whatever goes over the river, 31 and 32, I think. So it's targeted. Anybody who put their bus in Route 31 and 32 will benefit from these. And it's not a whole country thing. It's just those people who live over the river and have to take a minibus across the bridge. So having the bridge here, apart from the intangible, you have a tangible benefit. Now you can reduce the cost from 120 to 100, or from 500 to Perica to then 4 something. That would be my thinking, right? Remember, I was not in any of the strategy meetings or whatever, but I think this being an election year, a new bridge is coming and the bridge is going to be free. I figure that may have been a political decision, right? But if my opinion was asked for, that's the way I would structure it. And I would do the same thing in Berbice.
Yeah, I would have said, subsidize, keep the toll and subsidize the poor, the poor classes.
Same thing with Berbice. You bring down, I agree it should come down, but probably to the level of the Demerara Harbour Bridge. Bring it down to that, and then that money that you take in now, you help to, relieve the minibus, the people who just, those minibuses minibuses and taxis.
Yes, 31 and 30 no longer will pay.
They no longer will take, and the revenue goes down to $100 to $1. These kinds of things, and then you make sure it is translated into
Leonard, one of the things that some country I read is embarking on state enterprises. And I am not, we've had people here, guests, the PPP councillor, Alfonso Diamos, said he's openly capitalist. Kian Jabur surprised me speaking about the poor, and he just didn't bother to discuss what the banks were doing to poor people. A lot of people on this program said, I think, don't want to hear about socialism. But to put it more correctly, I think they would reject socialist economics, forms of socialist economics in the administration of Guyana. I can't support the whole outright complete rejection of socialist economics. I don't know about the other country.
I can't. No. All of Europe are socialists. All of Europe, Germany, the Scandinavian countries, France, all of them are.
But people do come here and talk about capitalism. Don't understand that you have systems where the state, right, is involved in distributing resources directly to people, like daycare. Now, I don't see anything wrong with state-owned transport system where you have state buses that you leave Georgetown and it's straight to Mahaica.
Yeah.
And
then senior citizens and some vulnerable people are given a special card, and you wave the card with all the technology you have. You don't even have to discuss anything with the driver. You wave your card and that thing allow you to go in the bus. And if you don't meet those conditions, you then pay your fare on the bus and go as per normal.
Now, you did your PhD in international trade in China. You will know more than me, so I don't want to get into your thing. But I could talk about what I know the Europeans are doing. And that is in the area of international politics. The European Union, from day one, despite globalization, despite they formed the WTO, World Trade Organization, they subsidize their farmers. You know, I see a guy who, I don't know what happened, like he's gone to bad days. I see a guy that was producing grapes. They featured him in the Chronicle, man producing serious grapes. You subsidize those farmers, and let the grapes come onto the market.
I didn't intend to talk about this subject, but just as you brought it up, only last night I was discussing somebody who works with me. I was discussing, agriculture in Guyana. And we were discussing, and I said, my program, if I were asked for my opinion on agriculture, this is what I'll do. I'll regionalize crops, on crops and permanent fruits or whatever is the agricultural produce, whether it's animal, whether it's crops, whatever. I'll regionalize it. For example, do you know more than about 50%, more than about 60% of the shallot that you buy at the market comes from Bath settlement in West Berbice? I said that to make the point that almost everybody in Bath settlement knows about shallot and the raising of shallot, the growing of shallot inside out. They know what are the disease, they know how long it takes, they know how to water it, when to plant the seed, how to, almost every little child, because you grow up in the environment where your family, even if you don't have big acres, you plant your 10 bed in your yard, in your backyard, or little past, or they call it first reef or something like that. People know how to do that. And because you now develop that culture of taking care and planting shallot, everybody knows that. Maybe you could expand it a little and provide support and so on. And then you can even put a small plant. You just need a small building, put a small plant that can process some of the shallot. Yes, you need a fresh shallot coming down to town, but quite often, sometimes you go to the market and shallot flood in the market till it turning yellow right in the market. It therefore means then that shallot that's turning yellow, you got wasted. If there is a little building in Bath that could process some shallot, so some of that excess could then be processed into whatever shallot could make. I don't know what are the things. And so you have that. And then you could, when I say regionalized crops, then you're going to have some other area, you make them specialists in peppers. Just plant pepper for the next 5 to 10 villages. This is the pepper section. And then some people are going to do mangoes. And you have that spread out across the country. And people develop know-how. And I see this at work in St. Vincent. Almost every family in St. Vincent has a little plot where they grow bananas. Some people are lawyers, some people are doctors, teachers, and they still have a little banana plot. And on a weekend, they go up, they call it going to the mountains, they clean out their banana grove or whatever you call it, and so on. And then as a family, you reap your banana, and a truck or whatever comes and buy the banana from you. And probably give you a chit you could take to the bank or pay you cash. And so it is a national knowledge of banana. Granted that it's a small island and they don't have too many crops.
We got 6 minutes more. I don't know time flew like that.
Yeah. Because
I wanted to ask you. I'm not following the debate in Parliament. For me, it's too long. But Asha Kissoon is in Parliament.
Yeah.
She's sitting there in Parliament.
Yeah.
And we got elections just about 5, 6, 7 months away. that is so unfortunate. That woman's actually attended Parliament.
Yeah, well, yeah. I think saw, yeah, she is. But before we close, what do you think? Two quick things, if you could comment. The poll, somebody did a poll saying that Mohammed guy is far more popular than Irfan Ali. That's one. And two, AFC and APNU made a new agreement recently. They have not released all the text or whatever, or the agreement, the clause in the agreement. Well, what do you think?
Oh, quickly, if you're looking at this program, please go. Tonight is Wednesday. Please go to my column in the Guyana Chronicle for Tuesday. I dealt with that thing. Some man named Bisram, who I believe never did a poll in his life, but says he does poll, said he did some straw poll. And the man in him said that Azzaruddin is close. The man said, Azzaruddin is more popular than... And I want to dismiss that. If it had come from the University of Guyana, but not Bisram. The thing about the second one, and that is the agreement between APNU and AFC. We will have to devote another, you and I wrapping together, to talk about that, because I think it's more than meets the eye that the AFC, to my mind,
in the age or
well,
whatever,
I think not knows
claims
that,
an objection.
I think not knows use, and the AFC trying to stay alive at their expense.
Yeah, I think basically,
no stupid guy.
Basically that's it. But I think my column this week also outlined that, hey, look, PNC, and I am not saying what they are capable of. I don't want to think, but I use stats from the last 11 elections, including local government and general elections since '92, and the PNC has never won any of those on their own. And so one would have to conclude that in its current formation, the PNC is not able to transcend the 48 or 47% that they normally, the highest that they have reached on their own. And they have to search what those reasons are. But the 2025 election is too close. So we know that the PNC is not going to win an election on their own, and the PNC knows that. And they are hoping that the facade, they can build a facade using the AFC. So it's a, I am using you and you're using me kind of thing. And the AFC know it needs to piggyback on the PNC. And I think because of that, I don't think we're going to hear the contents of the agreement anytime soon. I also show in that article that between the PNC or the APNU and AFC, in the first agreement or the first two agreements, they themselves trampled on the agreement. And now, how are you going to trust that this new agreement will not be subject to being trampled upon?
We got to go, but there's a big gap in your presentation there. If the PNC cannot win an election, you said that, and that has proven to be the pattern. But if they can't win the election, I think without the AFC, they're going to get the same percentage. So what is the AFC bringing?
No, I think because of the partnership with the AFC,
they can get more?
No, the AFC stands because of the existence of the previous partnership. The AFC may have developed an affinity within the hearts of some of the voters who vote for the PNC, may vote for the AFC. So the PNC may, in my opinion, lose a couple of some of their support base to the AFC. And I think they're trying to avoid that. But in terms of growing the base, using the AFC, I think they're hoping for a miracle.
Well, we could end on that note. There are miracles, but those miracles really exist in the mind of those people who think there are miracles. The AFC joining with the PNC would not result in a miracle. They will lose the election, and I believe they will lose the election simply because of the presence of the AFC. But on that note, we've got to go. This has been one of a continuation of the new format with Leonard, Craig, and I, in which we present our analysis because we feel as educated people and as people with analytical reach, we need to propound our analysis so people can maybe learn from it. So we will continue on this format. Unfortunately, Leonard cannot make it Friday evening. He's a Seventh-day Adventist. So we'll have to get a co-host for the call-in on Friday, or I'll do it myself. But thanks for being with us this Wednesday evening. Please enjoy the rest of Wednesday and the days to come. We will see you on Friday. Bye-bye.